The Medical College Admissions Test, or MCAT, is one of the most important milestones on the path to practicing medicine. And with so much on the line and so much content to learn and skills to perfect, it is to many a formidable task. So, we at Brainscape have recruited the intellectual firepower that is Clara Gillan, an experienced MCAT tutor and 100th percentile test taker with a score of 526, which makes her a unicorn. With that said, let's dive in. Here are Clara's top tips for acing the MCAT. Cool, Clara. The MCAT is a beast of an exam that not only tests a mountain of science content, but also requires you to be a sharp analyst and critical thinker. So here's the ultimate question. Where do students start? And what are the first steps you advise students to take as they embark upon their MCAT prep?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the big question, right? And so I think the first thing to do is to just understand what the MCAT is, right? Like understand, okay, like what does it test? Even like very approximately, what subjects are on it? Have you taken those classes yet? And that sort of thing. And that can help alleviate a lot of the, nervousness and fear and that sort of thing. And then, of course, the next big thing is to start planning a study plan. And so, once you have a rough idea of when you're going to take the exam, you're going to want to start building a study plan, figuring out what you're going to want to do when.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So great. Perfect that you mentioned a study plan. So when should students start prepping for the MCAT? And secondly, what are your hard and fast tips for constructing a solid study plan?
Ooh, yeah. So that's a fun one. So it depends on the student with regard to like when you should start studying. I'd say sometime between 3 and 6 months before you plan to take the exam. And then of course that raises the question of like, when do you take the exam? And that differs as well. But I would say many students, are taking it the summer after their junior year, maybe the spring of their junior year and that sort of thing.
Right.
And then, if you start prepping 3 to 6 months before, depends on how much time you have. If you're pretty busy, you're working, you're taking a lot of classes, and maybe something closer to 5 or 6 months is better.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my advice with regard to timing. And then the study plan question is a huge one, right? So this is a big thing to think about, but I would say in terms of starting out, figuring out what resources you're going to have available is a big one. And that can be resources from, things like which practice tests you're going to take and what you're going to use for content review. Are you going to use a flashcard tool or a flashcard program like Brainscape? And then are you going to use, other practice, like potentially passage practice and that sort of thing. Yeah. And then once you have all of that in like a sort of mental bucket, then you can start to parse it out. And that's the fun part, but also a big challenge.
Yeah. So it's like they're spending a whole, I don't know, maybe a month or maybe a week just planning their studies before they start studying.
Oh yeah, it can be a huge process. Honestly, I tell students all the time, like you can either focus your energy on studying for the MCAT or you can focus your energy on planning to study. And it's really hard to focus on both just because planning is itself like almost a full-time job in the beginning.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, so in most of the test prep guides one finds online, there's a consistent message. The science content, the MCAT test, is just as important as how the MCAT tests it. So can you please just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's actually a huge point, and one that I'm really glad that all these resources are starting to understand, because it wasn't that way for a long time. For a long time, all the advice that you would find online would be like, just focus on the science content itself, right? Like, here's what's on the MCAT, and you should just know that. And that is super important. I mean, that's like the whole reason why things like flashcards exist and things like, content review videos exist. Because the science content, is super important. It's a ton of stuff. But how it's tested is also huge. Yeah. So, because you can imagine, I mean, even like if you aren't all that familiar with the MCAT yet, you can think, okay, like there's a wide range that you could see on any sort of multiple choice science test. Where you could just see, straight up like very simple knowledge-based questions, or you could see like really intense reasoning focused, like data focused questions.
Right.
And the MCAT has a lot of the latter. So the MCAT, has a ton of like questions that are based on critical reasoning and graph interpretation and that sort of thing.
Right. And if you don't know how to apply your science knowledge to solving a problem, then, I mean, how are you supposed to become a doctor? Because really, that's what a doctor does all day.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that is the rationale, right? Like, yeah, like so many students just think, oh, the MCAT's just there to torture me or to make my life hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like they have their reasons, and like a big goal of the MCAT is to say, okay, can you take the knowledge that you have? So that knowledge is super critical, you know, and that's like the knowledge you're going to get when you go to 4 years of med school. But can you also apply it to unfamiliar and potentially stressful situations?
Right. You know, I keep coming back to the scenario because I recently had to take my driver's test because I moved to a different country. I keep coming back to the scenario where you can learn all the road signs and regulations, and you can learn a route even, but to apply that knowledge to a completely strange area where you've never been before and drive safely, it's like, that's a separate thing. So that's why, you know, really, you know, teaching those critical thinking and reasoning and analysis skills are so important as a doctor, where you're not going to be familiar with every scenario you come across and you have to think on your feet. So yeah.
It's a perfect analogy.
Maybe a little easier than medical practice, but yeah. All right. So, so what study resources should students give preference to for, firstly, the development of their content knowledge, and secondly, their critical thinking and reasoning skills? And where can they find these resources?
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's, there's so much out there, honestly, now, which it didn't used to be true. So it's kind of a good problem to have. With regard to there being, you know, tons of content resources, a good number of strategy resources. So what I would do first is I would try to get a sense of what sort of modalities, like with regard to content at least, what sort of modalities you want to use to study. So things like, oh, do you mainly benefit from using books? Do you mainly benefit from using videos? Have you benefited from using flashcards in the past to review and you know, re-emphasize material? Yeah, and then I would structure it around that. Although one thing that's really important is some variation.
Okay.
Yeah, so like, you know, even if you typically have really liked videos in the past, you know, maybe you'll benefit from also with really difficult or confusing topics, reading it after you watch the video, you know, soaking it in a sort of a different modality.
Right.
Yeah, and so then that's where something like, you know, flashcards could come in really handy as well, because it's like, okay, I saw this 2 days ago, or I saw this 2 weeks ago. What have I forgotten already? You know, does it sort of trigger these memories if I see it in a slightly different way on a flashcard?
Yeah. Yeah. So important to use multiple modalities and spaced repetition, where you keep seeing the same concept over and over until you really onboard it.
Yeah, that's critical. That's a huge thing, like the idea, and not to deviate, I know you asked about practice resources also, but absolutely critical, that spaced repetition, because content review for the MCAT is never like really over. Right? Like, you know, you don't want to just like be like, oh, I'm going to read this chapter, I'm going to understand every single word, and then it's done. Like, check it off. Yeah. Nope. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. You know, that's just how the human brain is. So spacing out exposure is really good. Yeah. Yeah, and then with regard to practice resources, there's a lot of good stuff out there. The AAMC is huge, so that's the biggest thing that I could possibly you know, promote in terms of practice, like, so not content. They really, unfortunately, don't have content resources, which is why, you know, we have all these other great options from other companies. But they do have practice exams that I would highly recommend everybody take, and then some very good practice resources for passage practice and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, on that subject of practice exams, which are a crucial mode of preparation for the MCAT, when should students start taking practice exams, and how can they get the most out of them?
Yes. Yeah, that's a question that, you know, I get all the time, as you can imagine. And the answer to when they should start is, it's this uncomfortable answer of like, start as soon as you can. Yeah. So I know, you know, we've talked about this before, but as soon as you possibly can, take a practice exam. And then, well, by that, I mean, at least within the first month, right? So not necessarily day one, like I'm just going to sit down and take one right away, although that can be good too. And I've seen a lot of students have a lot of success, like I know it's not going to go that great. I know it's going to be a really tough, beastly,
Right.
7-hour thing. But I'm going to start out with it. I'm going to get an understanding of what the MCAT is like and what it feels like from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, yeah. And then in terms of like how to actually get the most out of it, the key is just review, very, very thorough review. Taking the test is like less than half the battle.
Right. Spend as much time on reviewing your answers as you do on the actual test itself, because that's where the learning happens. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then I was going to say, taking it early on makes so much sense because, but if you think of it, you're going up against this enemy, you're going to go and do battle with this exam. Why would you start preparing to do battle with it unless you know exactly what it looks like, how it moves, how it breathes? And as much as you're going to feel like a complete idiot taking that first exam and you're going to be like, how am I going to do this? I'm going to fail. Do it. You're going to learn the exam before you start prepping for it. And that's really going to equip you for success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Awesome. All right. So in your experience, what are the biggest mistakes students make when studying for the MCAT?
Great question. So one we just alluded to, I think, was waiting too long to see what the MCAT is actually like. So that means to take a practice test, or often even like to take practice passages, because passages are frustrating, they're difficult, and no one wants to like get every question wrong on a passage just because they're early on in their prep. But that would be a huge mistake, and by that I mean putting it off. Because it's just so unexpected, right? Like I mean, the MCAT is very, very different from what any student may have seen often in their college courses.
Right.
And so if you sort of go in with this expectation of, I did really well in college. I remember what like college biochem and college organic chem were like. It's probably going to be sort of like that. And then you don't correct that assumption for a long time. You can end up studying in a way that's not conducive to success. Right.
Okay. Okay. And then finally, what are your best study tips for the MCAT?
Yeah. I have so many. It's tough to pick. Yeah. But, okay. One good one that, I've been really, really trying to convey to every student I talked to recently is, prioritizing. So prioritizing in your studying. So things like, we all want to sit down and like do, 300 flashcards, or sit down and like read a chapter of a book and understand every single thing that we read equally well, because we're like, okay, I need to get all of this. Like all of this is on the MCAT. But some is tested more heavily than others in terms of like some topics and some subjects. So things like, like in the Brainscape flashcards, we have like amino acid based flashcards, and amino acids are by far the most heavily tested. Typically, I mean, every MCAT is different, but you'll see a lot of amino acid questions on 2 of the science sections, on the Chem Phys and the Biochem section. And so it doesn't make sense to spend like the same exact amount of time studying amino acids as you spend studying some random thing where you maybe will see like one question about like the parts of the eye or something. So prioritizing, like understanding, like, okay, you want to get the most out of your time. You don't have to get everything perfect. You can get a score that will absolutely get you into med school without necessarily being equally perfect on every single thing.
Yeah. That's a real mindset shift from high school to college, and then, is going from being perfect in everything in your subject and all the content they present you with to becoming so much of a more of a critical thinker and being able to prioritize and just sort of cherry pick finding out what's important to learn and, learning that.
Yeah, it is. And, it's hard for pre-meds, but it's part of the process of becoming a doctor.
Exactly. You wanted this, you got it.
Yeah, you're here.
Cool. Awesome. Clara, thank you so much for chatting to me today. You've given us some great advice and a great starting point for people who are embarking upon their MCAT studies. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, there you have it. The best MCAT study tips straight from the expert's mouth, Clara Gillan. She's also the Director of Product at Med School Coach, a tutoring and consulting service for students embarking upon a career in medicine. So if you're in that boat, I really encourage you to check them out. If you are preparing to take on the MCAT, make sure you get Brainscape certified MCAT flashcards in your corner. We have distilled down and organized the science content you need to know into an awesome collection of smart flashcards, which are proven to help you learn and remember content twice as fast as traditional study methods. Armed with these, you'll keep up that healthy cadence of daily review that is so essential for landing high scores on the MCAT. And for even more guidance, check out the other videos we have on Brainscape's medical channel, including more interviews like this one. And go to our MCAT Academy for free study guides on everything you need to know to prepare for and ace the MCAT. These tools, together with your ambition and hard work, is everything you need to rise to your challenge.